Welcome to Ex Machina. Join us as we explore the mysteries of this world. Cryptids, monsters, macabre tales, and horror stories abound. Could they be true? Are monsters real?
Good evening, folks, and thank you for joining us on another edition of Ex Machina. Doc is on vacation tonight, so we have kind of a surprise for everybody. Joining me in the studio is Robbie Rip Rains, Steve Wildman Monrotis, and new to the crew, there's Ken the Tactical Midget Brock from BrockBlades.com. Guys, how you guys doing?
Doing well.
Hanging in there. We'll see at the end of the night.
See if we can trust you and Ken in the same room.
My ankles are just now healing up from the last time me and Ken were together.
I didn't have my bucket with me. I couldn't reach any higher.
So how was the training class?
It was good.
I have been through, as part of, in my tenure on the SWAT team, 4 different TCCC classes, and none of them came close to the Dark Angel medical class. And I'm not just saying that because Doc's a friend. He went so much further in depth and explained the whys of what you do to a degree that none of the other classes did. So I highly recommend it if anybody has an opportunity to get into one of those classes, to do it.
Yeah, and I mean, Ken and I even talked about this. Just you can tell how much Doc enjoys and how much he puts into that. I mean, which, that makes all the difference in the world. When you said, especially, and I said this when we were doing our little thing at the end of class, I'm not a medical guy. It's never been something that's really interested me. So I had a lot of, and Ken will tell you, because I talked to him about it, I had a lot of apprehension about that class, because that kind of stuff just scares me. But Doc made it, like Ken said, so easy to understand and so relatable. And it's like he described it as 16 hours of medical stand-up, because, I mean, we all know how funny Doc is anyway. But, it relaxed it and made it so easy to learn what you needed to learn, that you were just like, before you knew what was going on, hey, I know how to do this.
That's the best kind of teacher, is when you learn something and it's totally by surprise that you did.
Yeah. So,
Ken, since this is your first visit with us, why don't you tell everybody about your background so they know where you're coming from?
So I started in law enforcement at age 19 as a dispatcher. And I'll say up front that dispatch and corrections don't get enough praise for how much they have to put up with. My job getting shot at on patrol was a heck of a lot easier than dealing with dispatch. But anyway, I started in dispatch when I turned 21. I went on patrol. And then in 95, I was chosen to begin a tactical unit for the department. We didn't have one at the time, so went through a lot of training, slowly built up the team, and worked everywhere except forensics in my career. Finished my career as fugitive investigations, which was absolutely a blast. So I did 30 years full-time, and then when I retired, I came back as part-time, which means I do 2.5 days a month in training. So that's training with the SWAT team most of the time. I do a few patrol rifle classes and firearms training, but that's it. And when in 2002, I decided I was going to do something other than work security in a uniform. And so I sold a few guns and custom knives and bought a knife grinder and made a side business for myself. So that's what I do primarily now.
And you make wicked nice blades, dude.
Thank you.
Well, boys, tonight I thought we were going to do something, other than just talking cryptids, and considering the kind of the state of the world right now, it's good to have some knowledge in case things get bad. But if you're prepared for things going south in a cryptid investigation, you're prepared for a lot of things. So using that framework, we're going to talk about how you should prepare for time in the field. Whether you're going to be out hunting or camping or doing, looking for Bigfoot or Dogman, spending time away from areas where there's basic 911 services, there's some things you all ought to do to make sure you come home safe again. Because there are things out there that can and will hurt you, and not all of them are Bigfoot related. You've got snakes, bears, wolves, coyotes, mountain lions, and the all manner of greater North American meth head. So there's lots of dangers out there that can hurt you at any given time. So being prepared for emergencies when you're out hunting cryptids can also prepare you for a lot of emergencies that can come your way. And that's kind of the whole point of the show tonight. Oh, you boys ready?
Ready.
Yep.
I think the first point I wanted to bring up was, if you're going to be out in the woods, if you're going somewhere, and I know we've said this before, but we're going to cover it again. If you're going to go out somewhere and you're going to be off the beaten path, especially if you're going off a trail somewhere, you need to make sure that somebody knows where you're going and when you're supposed to be back. Somebody that's not with you. Somebody that knows where to send somebody to start looking for you when you don't show back up. Because minor injuries when you're in the deep field can become very life-threatening injuries. A rolled ankle can keep you from getting out of there. A broken leg can be fatal if you're stuck out in the middle of nowhere. Because if they don't know where to start looking for you, you better hope somebody's paying attention and gets a search and rescue crew out there looking for you. But sometimes
an infection sets in fast.
Sometimes you got
a dirty wound. A dirty wound can go septic in 24 hours. That's not cool.
Well, Doc was very clear that all of the stuff like tourniquets and chest seals and even an EpiPen are just a bridge to get you to real medical intervention.
Right.
That means help, Robbie.
First shot fired. I was going to make a drinking game out of every time that Ken busts somebody's balls, but I'm going to go into liver failure 30 minutes in. So
we probably shouldn't do that.
Probably not.
Nah.
Now, boys, if you guys were planning an expedition, whether whatever, going out cryptid hunting, going out, going to spend a week in the woods, going to deer camp, whatever, who's somebody you would think of to let know where you're going to be?
Honestly, if it were me, assuming I wasn't going with one of you guys, I would want somebody like one of you guys or my friend Rick, somebody who's outdoor capable. And quite frankly, if the shit gets totally real, could, basically bring the Marines, so to speak. I'm comfortable with the woods. I'm an Eagle Scout, grew up in the woods. I'm comfortable with firearms. I usually have one with me. If something happens out in the woods and for whatever reason I can't handle it myself, I want somebody like one of y'all coming out there, somebody who can find me and then be prepared for whatever they may find. If I'm injured, can they fix me? If for whatever reason, I can't imagine what it would be, but if I'm some kind of a tactical situation, someone who could, potentially get me out. That's my thought. I mean, there's no point in help getting to you if that help doesn't have any more resources than you do. If your coworker shows up with a bottle of Dasani water and a Band-Aid, that might not get me out of whatever shit I couldn't deal with.
Yeah,
Mrs. Moon says never go alone.
Wife.
That's a good point. What's that? What's that,
my
kid?
wife? My wife and my brother would be the primary two that I would let know, because they both know the area. They're familiar with what I'm going to do. My brother's a woodsman. He's a little older than me. So, and they would know who to call.
Ken, your video has frozen up.
Mine?
Oh, there, now not pop back. Awesome. Heck yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. I think we're all phasing a little bit intermittently.
The internet demons.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I had a sergeant in the Army that used to say that all electronics run on smoke. And if you ever let the smoke out, it won't work anymore.
Yeah, there's probably some truth in that.
Well, let's say you didn't have anybody, immediate family or somebody that wasn't going with you that you could think of. Who would be somebody you guys would let know?
If I was going to some kind of parkland, where it's actually controlled by somebody, I would let either the owner of that land know, what interval of time I'm going to be there, who I'm going to be with, or let's say it's a state park or something, let the ranger station know. Especially if it's really woolly stuff. I'm not going to be alone anyway, but I'd like them to know that there's going to be 2-3 guys out here, from the going in the 11th, expecting to come out the 13th. If somebody reaches out to them and said they ain't here, you know why.
Another good one, if you didn't have anybody else, is let the local sheriff's office know. Go by the office or stop or call dispatch and say, "Hey, I don't have anybody else to let know in case of an emergency, but I'm planning a camping or hiking expedition into this area. This is when I'm leaving, and I will call you before this date when I'm supposed to be back." And that way, there's somebody who can immediately begin searching. I don't know that I would recommend that as the opening line, but if you don't have anybody else, I would definitely considering reaching out to somebody who works as a first responder, be that a fire department, sheriff's department, police department, or like Steve said, if you're in a national park or even a state park, let a park ranger know.
Just make sure it's not Rod that you tell. Somebody just retired on duty and doesn't really care.
Yeah. Unfortunately, there are a few of them out there.
There's a guy that works on the park board in our biggest park here in town. We call him Ranger Dick. And he is, let's just say, as Doc might put it, he is more worthless than mammary glands on a boar hog. He's just a jerk. And I don't know why he even does the job that he does, because he clearly hates it and he hates his life. How you could work in a beautiful park all day and be pissed off is beyond me. But
Roppy, what are you drinking? Chillable Red? It looks red on the camera.
It does.
I think it is kind of red.
Well, it's got a little redder. It's got a little Mountain Dew Code Red in it, but
he's drinking himself a tank tickler.
For shame.
Look, I don't need to take no crap from you, little man.
Let me mark that down.
Joe Parker said, "What would you do if you were bluff charged?"
Poop.
So once I have crapped myself, honestly, it would depend on what the critter was that was doing it, because their behavior needs to change. If you're being charged by a mountain lion or a black bear, you want to stand your ground and be more aggressive and bigger than they are. If it's something like a grizzly bear, you want to be as basically as non-existent as you can be. Play dead if you can't get the F out. Holding your ground with a grizzly ain't going to do you any good at all.
No. And running from one's probably not going to do you any good unless you got somebody that you can outrun with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, little Patty says brown pants time. Yeah, she ain't wrong.
Seriously.
And in most cases, if you're being harassed by a wild animal, don't run. It'll only especially with a mountain lion or a large predator like that, it only engages their predator response, and they will chase you and they will outrun you. Like Steve was saying, try to look bigger, be imposing, keep something between you if you can. If you're carrying bear spray of some sort, I would definitely deploy it at that time. If you're carrying a firearm, I don't know that I would shoot at a Bigfoot that was bluff charging. unless it got within a certain distance. At some point, I'm going to draw a line. If I think it's gonna, if its intent is to drive me like a tent peg, I'm going to mag dump his ass at some point. That's not my opening. That's not my go-to. I don't really plan on doing that. But if I got to pick it and me, I'm picking me.
Every time.
Casey says we're wild hogs. Yeah, getting charged by a wild hog ain't no joke.
3D Havoc asks how Ken would make himself look bigger.
Climb on Robbie's shoulders.
There's really no way to do it.
Well, I was going to say just make yourself look less. Just make yourself look less edible.
We at least settled that. I'm taller than Doc.
I'm picturing you and Doc like going into a liquor store with a trench coat on, like standing on top of each other like little rascals, just so they'll let you buy booze at the counter.
As long as I'm on top, that's all that matters.
That's too funny.
Funny looking.
The best thing that ever happened in my career was when the 21st century plague showed up and we had to wear masks. So I looked so much better in the mask.
Yeah, I might be the same size as Doc, but he looks better. I got a face for radio.
That's my line right there.
Yep. That's I think it's true for a lot of us. I used to
I gave you open, Robbie.
Yeah. I ain't taking the low-hanging fruit.
I put myself through college working at a McDonald's restaurant. And most often than not, because I was pretty good on the keyboard, they would have me work basically taking the orders. So I was the one talking on the headset to the box. And they would never see me, and so they get to the window and they're like, "Okay, you're not the dude who was there because your voice doesn't fit." And I had somebody pull up one time when I was working the window by myself. They go, "You got a great voice." I'm like, "Well, that's awesome because I've got shit for a face. Got to have something going for me."
We all have our gifts.
I think another good thing that you should do if you're going to be going out in the woods. And I think this really carries over for pretty much anything you do, especially the way the world is today, is have a med kit. Now, of course, we're all going to recommend Dark Angel. I highly recommend Dark Angel. I carried one on my duty belt for years, and Steve can attest that. Dark Angel Medical, FSA, HSA approved. That's right.
I love it.
But definitely take a med kit, and as Doc says, cry once, buy once, cry once. Dark Angel kits aren't cheap. That's because they aren't cheap. They're full of life-saving goodness. They're a damn high quality kit. However, if you have to have just basic emergencies, take something beyond Band-Aids and Bactine. If you can't afford to get a big med kit, at least stock up on some supplies that you could actually use. Get some pressure bandages. Get a tourniquet, and it is vital you learn how to use that because a tourniquet can be used. It can be used quickly and can definitely save your life. Ken and Robbie and Steve are all first responders. They can tell you how fast somebody can bleed out with what looks like a fairly minor wound. But you hit an artery or a vein, and you're losing a lot of blood, and you're losing it fast.
About 11.6 seconds, wasn't it, Ken?
Yep.
According to that video.
Well, you only have a normal adult human. You've got, if you're lucky, 10 units of blood, and a unit's roughly a pint. So you got, let's say, realistically, 5 quarts of blood. Okay, your aorta is bigger than an inch in diameter. Your femoral artery is bigger than a half-inch in diameter. Think about how quick you could pour a little over a gallon of water out of a half-inch hose. It don't take long.
Don't take
And
long
you
at
lose
all.
more than about 20% of your blood volume, and you ain't functioning anymore. You don't have to lose all of it. They don't have to bleed you dry.
And you could buy a tourniquet and a pressure bandage and some chest seals a la carte without having a kit to put them in. And you've got at least your main three things that you're going to need, and save you a little money on the bag they come in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I have noticed something about the dart kits. The dart kits are wonderful for a major trauma. They've got your pressure seals, they've got your tourniquet, you've got your Israeli bandages and whatnot. Those are good for major traumas. I would also recommend carrying something similar to like Dark Angel's ouch pouch, more of just a generic first aid kit. And the ouch pouch is about the size of that dart kit that Ken just showed us. And it's got, all the different kinds of Band-Aids and a pair of gloves and some antibiotic ointment and stuff like that. It'll cover your typical nicks and cuts and scrapes and whatnot. And I think that kit's maybe 50, 60 bucks. You buy a piece of crap Johnson & Johnson first aid kit at Walmart, you're paying 40 at least.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have the guarantee of stuff.
KC Calloway says, how long are the Dark Angel medical kits good for? I've got a dark kit. I've got a dark kit I've had for 10 years, and it's fine.
If you keep them back and seal, which Doc recommends you do, I don't think there's a shelf life on much of that stuff, is there, Ken?
No. He said that the dates that are put on there are mandated by a lot of places, that they have an expiration, but they don't actually expire.
Right. And if you're talking about like the smaller kits, like the antibiotics and stuff like that, antibiotics do have a quote unquote expiration date. Now it doesn't mean they're just on that day they're rotten, you can't use them. It's just that they start to lose their effectiveness. So if I've cut myself on a thorn bush and God knows what the hell's on it and it's starting to fester, I would rather have some 80% effective antibiotic than zero antibiotic.
Right.
It's still giving you something.
And if you're packing a trauma kit, good for you, good on you. Definitely have a trauma kit. I've got trauma kits everywhere. I got one on my camera bag. I had one on my duty belt. I've got one on the bag that I take in the field. I've got one in the car. But also basic first aid supplies, Neosporin, Band-Aids, anything like that. The last thing you want is for a cut to get infected, especially out in the middle of nowhere, because infection can spread pretty rapidly. But one other thing you might want to bear in mind is life-saving meds. If you have asthma, make sure you've got an inhaler with you. If you take blood pressure medicine, I would always pack for 3 days. I don't care if you're planning on going out for that afternoon only. Shit happens. Your car might not start. Your ride doesn't show up. You get off the map and get lost. I would take a minimum, like especially if you take blood pressure meds or insulin, I would definitely have 3 days worth of meds with you at any given time.
One of the neatest things that I picked up in Doc's class was how we were talking about if you're allergic to bee stings or what have you, like my wife is, you can take not only Benadryl, but you can take Pepsid AC, because it's a histamine blocker.
I didn't know that.
I was like, I'd never heard that before.
If you need an EpiPen, you really want to have one with you.
Yeah.
Pepsid is an H2 blocker. It's an antihistamine. A good rule of thumb: if somebody has, like, let's say you're in an emergency like that, and somebody has some meds with them, antihistamines can usually be identified if you take the generic name and it ends in INE, ene. Like Benadryl is diphenhydramine, Pepsid is famotidine. The naming convention of those enes are antihistamines. It's better than nothing.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much how he presented it, is if you don't have anything else, you can take this. And it will bridge that gap till you get to the hospital. For
Drive
2 words,
faster.
Ken. Thank you.
Drive faster.
Is anything to get us out of this situation? 2 words. Drive faster.
One of the things that I've always tried to especially with my sons, is teach them like a mantra. Is, if you're not familiar with the rule of three, I would learn the rule of three, memorize it, and take it to heart. You can basically survive 3 minutes without air. Any longer than that, and you're gone. You can survive 3 hours with shelter if the weather's really bad, like a snowstorm or sub-zero temperatures. You can survive 3 days without water, and as long as you've got shelter. Or you can survive up to 3 weeks without food. Keeping the rule of three in mind can definitely save your ass. And plan your kit with the rule of three in mind. Make sure you've got a water source. Make sure you've got something, even if it's just power bars. It's better than starving. Keep something loose in your bag that you can use as for food, as a fire starter. I highly recommend life straws. Because they weigh next to nothing, and you can purify water straight out of a mud puddle. Like I think it's something crazy, like they'll filter like 10,000 gallons of water or something like that, and you can pick them up for $20. I got 3 or 4 of them in my pack. Now they make ones of those life straws that will fit literally right into the tube of your Camelback. You just fill your Camelback from the creek, slip that tube right through that life straw, and drink just like you normally would. These life straws are game changers, especially if you're going to be stuck out in the field, because having fresh drinking water, without fresh drinking water, you're boned.
Yeah, they're dirt cheap compared to what they used to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
when those
make sure
first
you've got,
came out, they were fairly pricey.
I paid like
you can find them all the time for like
$bucks for mine.
Yeah, when you find them all the time for like $20 and under. And there's several knockoffs now that are almost as good as Life Straw. I would just buy the Life Straw because they're the originals, and they, like I said, the prices come way down on them. But even a generic knockoff is still going to be good for enough water to keep you alive for a few days.
It's better to have something like that than not have anything at all.
Well, and on the food thing, carry something energy dense, protein bar, something like that. It's going to be lightweight. It's going to give you a lot of energy. If you think you're going to be able to survive on what you can identify as edible plants, you've been watching too much, Man versus Wild. Most of the shit out there is toxic. And, it's like people that watched a YouTube video, they think they can mushroom hunt. If you don't know what you're doing, don't try it. Most plants are toxic for a reason. It's to keep plant eating things from eating them. And, it's just not a good idea.
If you are going to try to do something like that, safest bet is acorns.
Yeah,
handful of white acorns will get you through. I think that we looked it up one time. I think it was a handful of them was the same as eating like a regular hamburger or something like that. Wasn't it, DA?
Something like
the
that.
The nutritional value.
But and then you got walnuts, and there's all kinds of.
That's the safest bet you can make is just grab you a half if it's that time. I mean, you if you're out there when it's not, when they're not on the ground, then you might be screwed. But if you're out there with that, and like you haven't taken what Steve said into account, and you don't feel like you can identify, because he's right. There's things that you eat them out there, they'll kill you. That's the safest bet.
And I know this one sounds like a no-brainer. It really does. But you'd be amazed how many people don't think of this. Get a freezer bag, freezer size Ziploc, and take a couple of rolls of toilet paper and squish them down and put them in that and zip it up. Throw it in your pack. Weighs next to nothing, and I swear to God, if you ever have to drop trowel in the woods and you wipe your butt with poison ivy, that is a self-correcting problem. You will never ever make that mistake again.
Well, even coming back to the food, even stuff that you can readily identify like plantain or dandelion, it's not energy dense. It's not going to give you a whole lot of nutrition. You'll get a few vitamins out of it. You can make a pine needle tea and get some vitamin C, but it's not fats and protein for your body.
There's a reason the cows eat the whole damn day. You know,
Yep.
they're don't get that much energy off the grass. So I just did a quick search here. So an ounce of acorns, which is probably a small handful, 110 calories.
That's not bad.
That's,
Mike from Abnormal
that's
Investigation says persimmons are now everywhere. So what's I haven't picked a persimmon yet this year. What's the core look like? They say you can usually tell what kind of winter you're going to get by the core of a persimmon.
Griff's talking about wild corn dogs again, DA.
Free range corn dogs.
Pretty sure my nephew's never going to forgive me for that, but it is funny.
As long as you got a
all
laugh
done that
at
one.
it, that's all.
Oh, we laughed our asses off. We still laugh about it, and he still doesn't think it's funny. And that was 30 years ago. Oh, he said it looked like a spoon. Yeah, the what they say is if the persimmon pit looks like a fork, it's supposed to be light dusting of snow. You're not supposed to have heavy snow. If it's a spoon, you're supposed to get thick, heavy snow. And if it looks like a knife, the temperatures are going to be like sharp cutting temperatures. If you can cut open a persimmon and look at the pit in that persimmon, and it's pretty obvious what it looks like. But that's
What if it looks like a fork?
What if it looks like a spork? I would say it's probably more of a fork then.
I mean, blizzard.
Mark Napier
Wendigo
says throw
weather.
a spork in your gear. I don't know if Scallywag still has any, but they have what they call the Sporky Spork. And it's a little tactical spork you've put on your key ring. I thought about picking a couple of those up. I don't know if they're in stock right now, but if not, I think Bud K's got one that's just like it. Marty says she makes a mean persimmon pudding. I bet that's good. There are a lot of natural foods out there that can keep you going if, like Ken was saying, if you know what they are. However, if you gauge something wrong and wind up eating something that is not good for you or is toxic, you could do more harm than good.
Well, it's like nightshade looks a lot like, and I don't know if this is the right terminology for them. My dad used to call them hacks, H-A-X, hackberries. We'd eat those all the time, but they look just like nightshades. So if you don't know what the bush is, what you're looking for, you get the wrong thing, you're going to have a bad day.
No, nightshade will stop your heart. That's what digitalis is made out of. Yeah.
We always would pick wild berries. I mean, there were so many berry patches here in Missouri when I was a kid growing up. Man, you'd go out in the woods, you'd come home and not even want to eat supper that night because you'd be eating damn berries all day long.
Yeah. I mean, that has its danger too, though. If you mistake a pokeberry for something, you will be so violently ill that you'll be incapacitated.
And it goes well. I don't say it goes without saying, but I've heard Doc say it plenty of times. There's a whole pharmacy out there in the woods. And he said it in our class, Ken, if you suffer from it, the cure grows from the ground.
Mm-hmm.
But it's knowing what you got. You can't just go out there and just pick something up and start chewing on it. You got to know what you're doing. And there's some things that are good for you, but they're not good for you unless you prepare them a certain way. You need to know this kind of stuff because there's some bark that's good for you, but you can't chew it unless it's been boiled. Mm-hmm. And there's some that if you boil it, it makes it poisonous. You've got to know what you're doing and what the difference is. I mean, you can survive an endless amount of time out there if you know what you're doing. Right. That's the key, is knowing what you're doing.
But not everybody is a sniper, Army Ranger, Navy SEAL. Not everybody knows all these plants. I mean, it's something that you've got to study, you've got to look up and understand. Casey Calloway says, "What's the average time of people being lost in the woods?" Ken, you did search and rescue, didn't you?
No.
Oh, I thought you did. I was thinking something else. I'm sorry. I think 72 hours is the window. If they're gone beyond 72 hours, that's when they start looking at calling off the search. But I think, you know, if you're going to be stuck somewhere, especially if you're going to be off trail, I would plan on for at least 3 days.
I think it also depends on your area. If you're lost in the mountains of California, that's a much bigger deal than being lost in the woods in South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
Although you tend to, well, and like to build on that, it's a different area. I mean, you know, you may have a greater elevation over there or in California that you have to deal with, versus you may have worse wildlife that you may have to deal with here. You know, who knows? It's depending on what time of the year it is, where you're at, what elevation you're at. I mean, there's a 1,000 different things that could change the level of danger to wherever you're at. You know, it could be okay at this time of the year, but this time of the year you get lost, and you know the elements are going to take
Get you pretty fast. Well, and you've also got to plan for your surroundings. Whatever your pack is going to be, like Ken's saying, if you're going to have a much different pack if you're going to be up in the Rocky Mountains than if you're going to be down in the swamps. You're very much, where you're going, where your surroundings are going to be is going to dictate what goes in your pack. But there are some basic essentials that cover everywhere. One of the things I would definitely throw in my pack, and they weigh nothing, are space blankets. You can buy a package from Amazon for like $5, and there's like 10 of them in the package. They're a little mylar blankets, and they've got more than one use. I mean, you can use these things to make signals. You can keep yourself warm. You can make crude shelters with them. You can even make water traps to catch dew. I mean, there's a lot of uses for a space blanket. And coincidentally, they also will block out IR.
If you make a little sleeping shelter with those, and use the reflective side inside, and set you a little fire right outside of it, you're pretty much a baked potato. I mean, you don't even have to sleep in the sleeping bag, because that heat will radiate.
Just don't get the fire too close to your blanket.
Yeah, because as Doc said, they will catch fire and they will melt. Then you're a silver potato.
Well, those space blankets weigh nothing. I mean, you could put a dozen of them in one pocket of your pack and never notice the weight. They weigh literally nothing. But not to be underestimated is the value of some good twine or cord. Mm-hmm. I keep a pretty good length of 550 cord in mine. 550 cord's got 1,000,001 uses.
I think I got 300 feet of 550 in my bag.
And you can make emergency shoestrings out of 550 cord. You can use 550 cord as a fire starter. You can make shelters. You can make snares. You can fish with it. I would
bowstring.
Make a bowstring. 550 cord's got 1,000,001 uses, and it's cheap. You could go on Amazon and buy a spool of 1,000 feet of 550 cord for like $25.
I got my 550 at what's that? Ollie's, I think. Mm-hmm. They had little packs. You know what I'm talking about? Had little packs of it. Yeah. I got 300 feet for like I want to say it was like $7-8.
I caught a clearance one time. They had a shopping cart full of those coils like that of 550 cord. They were like $1 a piece. I bought like a dozen of them and threw them in a box.
Yeah.
About 550 cord and Gorilla Tape will get a lot done.
Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And another thing that I got at Ollie's, which is actually pretty, because you can use it for multiple things. We're talking about things with multiple uses. I found a pack of multiple rolls of electrical tape, but in different colors. It's like black, red, white, blue, yellow. You can use that for blazing a trail. You can use that to, as like if you take your little Mylar blanket and put it out, you can use a high visibility color to make a message on it, like SOS or anything like that. But there's 1,000,001 uses for electrical tape anyway. Mm-hmm. Anybody, Ken, I'm sure you've used the old electrician's use for electrical tape before. cutting your finger and wrapping it up with electrical tape. I mean, it makes a really good, but if you don't have anything else, it makes a really good wound seal.
A shop towel and electrical tape.
Yeah,
super glue.
Yep.
I've used that.
I've closed up
1,000
many a
times.
cut with super glue.
Yeah. Well, that's I mean
keep
that
a bottle
too,
of
but
super.
I've done what Ken said: shop towel and electrical tape on many a cut.
I don't know if you can see it because my arm's chroma keying out, but I got a scar that runs across my arm. We sealed that with super glue.
Yeah, I keep a big bottle of super glue on the shelf in my shop, and it has two uses. One is to seal the knot when I cord wrap a knife handle, and the other is to seal my fingers when I cut them.
Super glue is damn useful. I mean, just keeping a tube in your pack really costs nothing in weight wise. And believe me, weight becomes important when you're carrying stuff long distance.
Yeah.
Anybody's ever had to go out into the woods with a heavy pack will tell you, what feels fine when you put it on at the truck is going to feel like it's 1,000 pounds when you're 2 miles down the trail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you can
Yeah.
you can make a smaller pack. Like I've got 2 packs in my truck. I've got my big bag that's got like really big stuff in it that if I was going out for longer than, just an initial look, hike in or, look at stuff. If I was really going to go in for a ways, I would take the big pack, and it's got like poncho and pretty much everything that's in the smaller pack, but more survival type stuff too. That if something happened, I got in. But even in my little small, you saw that little pack that I got, DA, the little over the shoulder pack. I've got like 2 or 3 space blankets in that. I've got a couple rolls of that multicolor electrical tape. I've got some carabiners, zip ties, 550 paracord. I've got, measuring tape for running across evidence. I've got knives. Got life straw in both packs. I've got my Camelback in my big pack, but I've got a life straw in that pack. But I've also got a life straw in the small pack too. So I mean, you can make these packs for next to nothing if you really take your time and look for stuff. Amazon's great for that. I mean, you can remember that kit I showed you that I got for $30? They had all kinds of survival stuff in that. I bought that and split that up in between my 2 packs. I took fire starting stuff and split it up and put some fire starting stuff in the big pack, some in the small pack. It's not hard to do this stuff, but you just got to do
it. Ken Robert D had a question for you. He said, have you had a Bigfoot run in? Or if not, what do you think of them?
No, I have not had a Bigfoot run in or any other type of cryptid encounter. I do believe in them. Typically, there's not a ton of reports around here of the Bigfoot. The lizard man was the one that was big in South Carolina for a while. But I haven't encountered any cryptids, but I do think they're out there.
Check that, Ken. We've got some stuff that we got to talk about. I got a few.
He was asking about me, Robbie. It's not all about you.
No, I'm talking.
This was about me.
I want to take. Okay, you got it.
You want to take me on a date? What?
Try to be nice to some little people, and all they do is snap at you.
Hey, I'm Big Spoon. That's all you got to remember.
You're too small to be a big spoon with me, Ken. Your big spoon will come up to the bottom of my thigh.
Whatever. Gets the job done.
You start calling him Teaspoon.
That's funny. Folks, it's something that should never be undervalued is taking something to defend yourself with. I know a lot of folks don't believe in carrying firearms, and some people live in states that don't allow you to carry firearms. Fortunately, move. Fortunately, I'm in a constitutional carry state. I can carry pretty much what I want when I want. But if you don't live in a situation like that, or if you don't own a firearm, there are lots of other things you can carry. A good solid walking stick is a good substitute for what's better than nothing. You can keep it between you and animals and things like that. But really, pound for pound, the greatest invention mankind has ever made for survival situations is a blade. If you don't have a good blade, get one. I highly recommend carrying a good quality knife. Now, you can go to Walmart and buy a cheap $5 pocket knife, and it's going to be a cheap $5 pocket knife. It may or may not hold an edge. It may or may not close on your hand when you're trying to cut something with it. But invest in a pocket knife you can trust. Brock Blades makes fantastic knives. Scallywag Tactical makes great knives. Carry a knife that you know you can trust, will hold an edge well, and you can use as an all-around tool, because it's not just for cutting rope or cutting string, or it's you can use one to skin a fish, scale a fish, gut a fish, skin a deer, make traps. You can even tie one to the end of a walking stick and make a spear. There's 1,000,001 uses for a blade, and there's really no substitute. I don't leave the house without at least one pocket knife on me.
There's a company that sells a tactical walking stick, and it's got like a little pike in it and a whole bunch of different things. They're pretty badass. I think they made it like titanium or something, but they've got like a dozen uses. It was really cool.
If you want to get a knife and you don't want to spend a lot of money, a Mora knife is the best value that you can get. The I say small fixed blades, about a 4-inch blade, most of them are, and they start at about $15, and they're kind of the exception to the rule of buying something cheap. I've given a ton of those as gifts. Yeah, and they go up in price. You can have one of the Garbergs, which is a model they make, which is $85, $90, or you can get one of just their regular ones for $15. And most of the time, that's the first knife I give my kids is a Mora.
Usually the first knives I gave with my boys, the first knives I gave my boys were old buck knives.
Yeah, it usually goes a Mora knife, a Swiss Army knife, and then I let them design. I make them draw out a design, and then I make them a custom knife.
Nice. Haliwa Wolf's question: do y'all think a survival kit would be a good bug out kit, or should they be separate?
Well, that's a hard question, because I think a bug out kit would have a lot of the same items as a survival kit. But bug out kits, for those of us who are comfortable with firearms, usually include firearms and ammunition. Anybody who's ever gone to the range to play with their toys knows that ammo weighs a ton. I don't care what you're carrying, it's heavy. And you don't necessarily want that in your typical survival kit if you're not going to need it. I have a little survival kit that I've got, more of a tactical kit that would go with it if I had to bug out. It's got, it's got the extra magazines, it's got the ammo. There's a spare handgun in there that obviously will use that ammo. I personally, if I'm just going to be doing some hiking or whatever, maybe doing a little investigation, and I'm trying to prepare for the worst, I don't know if I want to carry, 30 pounds of ammunition on me. That's going to get heavy fast.
That's very true. And, there's a survival kit and a bug out kit are two separate things. What you might have for a survival kit might be what we're talking about. Short-term survival until basic 911 services can get to you or search and rescue can find you. A bug out kit, you're looking at something far longer. You're looking at a long-term survival kit. You're going to have to build them in totally different ways.
Yeah.
A bug out kit is for when the shit hits the fan and you need to disappear.
Right. Society has broken down, and you are the police.
Right.
That's.
However, if you're going to put together a survival kit that you can grab and go, or and you want an ideal weapon to keep in it, a 22. Winchester makes one called the AR-7 survival rifle. It breaks down and fits in the stock of the weapon, and it floats. Once it's disassembled and put back in the stock and capped up, you could drop it in a river and it's going to float. It's 22 caliber, comes with 1 magazine, holds 10 rounds, and 22 ammo, does not weigh much. If you need a survival gun, that would be the one I would recommend. What do you guys think?
I think you're quite right. I mean, anything that you're realistically going to find and be able to kill to potentially eat, if that's your situation, you could take out a squirrel, rabbit, something small. You're desperate enough, wild dog. Most people that are in a survival situation aren't going to happen to stumble across a trophy buck that they're going to be able to take out, to eat. It's just not going to happen.
Every game animal on the face of North America has been brought down with a 22. I'm not saying how many rounds it took to kill it, but every major game animal on the face of North America has been brought down with a 22. It can be done. A lot of that is shot placement and being a good shot with that. But if you are even a passable shot with a 22, you can feed yourself indefinitely on squirrels, rabbits. There's 1,001 small animals out in the woods that you could put down with a 22 and keep yourself fed.
There's been an awful lot of whitetails poached with a 22 to the head.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can put just about anything down. And a 22 Magnum, even more so. A 22 Magnum hollow point. We used to hunt coyotes with 22 Magnum hollow points. Kevin Bode says a 22 with a pop bottle silencer. That'll work for a few shots. Mark Napier says if you're having to hunt and forage, you're probably screwed. Yeah, maybe. I mean, but I'm not going to choose to just lay there and wait for somebody to come rescue me. I'm going to be an active part of my own rescue. I might stick to an area and leave signs where I've been if they're looking for me. But I'm going to take it. I'm not going to sit there and starve. Of course, anybody that takes one look at me knows I'm not going to starve to death anytime soon. But you've got to take. Sometimes you are 911.
It's very easy to find squirrels. I mean, they're everywhere.
Yeah. And squirrel's not bad. I mean, I've eaten plenty of squirrel in my day.
My son
They're not hard to prepare.
My Uncle Buddy's house, man, breakfast was pan-fried squirrel and eggs.
I'll make a fine meal.
Not bad. We'd also, strip the meat and put it in brown beans.
Something like a steel canteen cup is a nice little addition to your kit too, because it has 101 uses. You can cook out of it, you can drink out of it. It's
make coffee in it.
You could shave. If you were concerned with it, you could shave out of it.
I don't think if I'm in a survival situation, shaving's become a low priority.
Oh, same here. I just know that the military folks have been known to do it in a deployment. But yeah, shaving is low on my list of priorities in that situation too. There you go.
I have a single wall clean canteen bottle in my pack, and that way you could use it to heat water, or if you find water, you can carry it with you without worrying about it spilling.
It's always good to have some form of canteen with you where you can tote water. Ricardo says, "What about deer meat?" Well, deer meat's that goes without saying. I mean, venison, venison is a staple if you can get it. But if you're carrying just a pistol or all you have got's a pocket knife, deer might not be on the menu. Sorry, I was trying to keep up with the comments. Back to the taking a weapon. If you guys had to pick one tool to take with you, and I'm not saying, any high end like AR or anything like that. If you were in an absolute worst case scenario situation and you only had one tool, what would you want it to be?
One firearm,
or something to help you in a survival situation.
I was going to say a good knife is probably what I would start with.
Yeah, a
because you could do so much more with that.
For sure.
But there's just and a knife is not just a weapon; it's a tool. It is something you can use to build your shelters. You can hunt with it. You can make a shelter with it. You can make traps with it. A knife is a universal tool. It's the original multi-tool. A good blade is worth its weight in gold in a survival situation, because if you ain't got one, you'll understand very quickly how important they are.
Yeah, when you make shelter,
even things like digging out splinters.
Mm-hmm. Can you make knives? Which do you think would be your personal choice? Would you want a great big old like Ardennes Bowie knife, or would you want a smaller blade?
A bigger one. You can do small knife chores with a bigger blade, but you can't do big knife chores with a small blade. If I had to pick one, it would be in the 7 to 8 inch blade range. You can always choke up on it, and even though this isn't a good example, but if this was a longer blade, I can choke up on it and just use the tip for smaller knife tasks. But try to chop down a tree with a 3-inch blade.
Good point. That's why I think. Oh, go ahead, Ken.
I don't mean a big tree. You're not going to be cutting something huge down, but sapling size for if you need to make some kind of trap, a snare. You can always take another piece of wood and you can baton it through. You don't have to chop everything. Sally T, in my opinion, a fixed blade is better because it's not pre-broken. A folder is already weak because just by nature it's a mechanical device. It has a pivot. Any of that stuff can break. If I have to choose between a fixed blade and a folder, I will pick a fixed blade every time. That said, there's good folders out there, but both things being equal, a fixed blade is a much better choice.
I agree. Office says, Ken, do you think a kukri is a good choice for a knife?
Yes. Again, you can choke up on it. It has almost the perfect form for chopping. It will also work well as a draw knife, where you take a piece of wood and you're holding, sorry, I got to get used to the camera. You're holding the kukri with the blade towards you, and you can draw it like the old-timey draw knives they used in the Old West and frontier days, where you can strip bark off of a limb. They're very versatile. The Gurkhas use them for a reason.
Excited Book says, what about bugs?
What about eating bugs?
No. I don't. All they say is bugs. I'm assuming they mean, eating value, but there's also, how do you keep them away?
There are some plants, if you take cedar leaves, for lack of better terms, and kind of crush them a little and rub them on you, it'll help repel bugs to a degree. You going to bed?
There's a couple of plants that'll chase mosquitoes away. Off the top of my head, I can't remember them, but you know. Hello.
What?
Yes. Buenas noches, mijo.
That's just. Hello, random people.
Go away.
We are pretty random.
That is true.
So is he.
Well, I don't know your name.
He's the reason I drink.
I thought Robbie was the reason you drank.
Robbie's the reason I'm drinking tonight.
So what would you guys carry for fire starting?
Fire starting?
Dryer lint.
Yeah, I've got a little kit that's got some dryer lint in it, and one of those. We used to call them a quick spark in Boy Scouts, but it's like a little anodized rod and a piece of steel. And if you lose the piece of steel, ferro rod, thank you. And if you want to really consolidate, the blade of your knife will function as the steel. You know, you just need the ferro rod, and you know they'll throw a pretty good spark, and they work wet, which is the big thing. You know, a lot of these kits, you rely on your fire starter, you know, whatever your ignition device being dry. You know, even a regular Bic lighter doesn't work when it's wet. Yeah.
I usually carry.
The thing about a Bic lighter is you can dry it out pretty fast.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
you can. You know,
I usually carry a Bic lighter, and then I carry a ferro rod and a little container, like the military matchstick container, full of titanium dust. I collect the titanium dust when I'm grinding titanium blades. And I showed Doc when he was here, you hit it with a spark and it burns at almost 3,000 degrees.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Like magnesium shavings.
It's very similar to magnesium shavings. You put a little speck of that dust down on whatever your tender is going to be and hit it with a ferro rod, and it will light.
Robbie has a good point. Dryer lint is an easy one that anybody can get their hands on. Just, you know, pack a bunch of it in a Ziploc bag. That's a great fire starter. Mark Napier pointed out another good one. You can take cotton balls and work Vaseline into them, and they'll burn for quite a while. I know this is going to upset the Marines in the crowd, but crayons will burn. You can use crayons as fire starter, and they'll burn for quite a little bit. You can light one like a candle, and it'll burn for like 15, 20 minutes.
Happy birthday to all the Marines out there.
Definitely. You know, there's lots of things that you can do. And there are even more primitive ways of keeping fire with you. What they used to call an Apache match. There's a technique to that. You put embers inside some like grasses or pieces off of pine nettles, and then you roll it up tight, or it's not getting much air, and all it will do is smolder. And you can carry that coal for long distances and still have fire. But that's kind of getting out there toward the higher end. Really got to know what you're doing, kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But ferro rods are great. Magnesium strikers are great. A Bic lighter, keep it dry, but Bic lighter is a good addition to your pack. Matches are still always good, but the trick with those is you got to keep them dry. Throw a couple of matches in a Ziploc bag and seal it.
Another great fire starter is, and it's super cheap and easy to make. Take yourself like if you've opened up a box, cut the flap off the box. Especially if it's corrugated cardboard, with the 2 layers with the space in between it. Roll it up, tie it off with a piece of twine, and you can cut it into slices and then dip those in paraffin. They're super cheap to make, and they will burn like nobody's business. They make a great little like camp stove if you're just trying to heat something up. But they light almost immediately. We would spark those with ferro rods all day long, and they're nice, and they're not heavy.
If you carry alcohol wipes in your pack, they'll burn pretty well too.
Mm-hmm. Someone pointed out Doritos will burn. Doritos, you can set one of those on fire pretty easy.
Oh, yeah.
Brandy Copeland said store matches and old pill bottles. That's a good trick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Robbie can't do that because Robbie can't store them in pill bottles because they're childproof.
That'll take the top off of it.
Yeah, one thing I would stick away from is, as much as we love them, especially those of us who smoked, Zippos work great on television as far as, something to carry. But like, I was watching an episode of The Walking Dead one day, and these folks have been out in the wilderness for like 8 years or something, and they're lighting these Zippos up. Anybody who's ever carried one to light their cigarettes with, they dry out quick.
Yeah, it doesn't take long.
You're filling them up once a week at least, and of course even quicker than using them.
There's a company called Exotac, and they make ferro rods and several other different survival things. But they have a lighter, kind of like a Zippo. It's a cylinder, and it has a seal on it. So when you put the top on it, it doesn't leak like a Zippo. And I've left it alone for a year without losing any fluid.
Nice.
You'll carry a lighter. These are some of the best ones to carry. The little.
I've got one of those.
Butane inserts.
I filled this thing up when I got it 7 years ago, and have never put any fuel in it since the first time I fueled it.
Wow. See, I have that insert like that for one of my Zippos, and I have to refuel it fairly frequently if I'm smoking cigars, because you just burn so much trying to toast into the cigar.
Yeah, I mean, if you use this all the time, but this one is specifically for like my pouches and things like that, like bug out bags and stuff like that. It doesn't lose the fluid though. Like Zippos, it'll evaporate.
Oh, it doesn't drain. Yeah,
this does not drain.
I know one thing that should be in your pack, because technology can and will fail you generally when you need it the most. A good compass, and know how to use it. I keep a lensatic compass in my bag 24/7, because you never know when cell phone grids are down or you just have no signal. GPS isn't going to save you. But east will always be east, north will always be north, and a good map will always get you home.
Yep.
Roxanne says, Robbie, what's that lighter called? Who makes it?
I actually don't know who makes it. I got it in a store somewhere. It's just one of those little electrode lighters that just
here's a look at lighter.
Windproof electrode lighter. I mean, you can get them in any store, and they use the same kind of lighter, the same kind of fuel that we're talking about cigar. What's the brand you use for cigars, Steve? It's got the little tip on it, and it comes in the can. You press it in the bottom.
Oh,
in the bottom.
Oh, the butane.
Yeah, butane.
Spy in the Sky says a 9-volt battery is a good fire starter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You can touch that 9-volt battery to steel wool. It'll light it off.
Yeah, another good positive use of the folded up pieces of toilet paper in your pack is that can be a fire starter as well. Keep it dry. Do you guys keep like spare socks or change of clothes in your pack?
I do carry spare socks. Clothes, yes, you can, get exposed very quickly if you're wet. But you walk around in wet socks and your feet will break down very quickly.
Oh, yeah.
And, if you can't walk, it's kind of hard to, expel your own self out of there. it's it could be a bad deal.
What else would you guys add to a survival kit?
I think a mirror, like a small mirror. It's good for signaling. And if you have a signal mirror, even better. It's basically a little shaving mirror with a hole in the middle of it. And if you're relying on an aircraft or somebody at a distance to find you, if there's sun, you can make a pretty potent way to signal.
Yeah. If you're going to be away from, well, this is not necessarily a shit hits the fan situation, but if you're going to be someplace where your regular cell phone doesn't reach, you can get a GPS phone. You can also get those GPS beacons that you can activate that'll let people know that you need help. They're a little pricey, but if you're going to spend some time in the back country, they're worth every penny.
Mm-hmm. The new iPhones, the iPhone 14 and later, has a sat phone chip in it, and in an emergency, it lets you send a sat phone driven text message, and so you won't have self signal, but you have a way to get a signal out. So, assuming the sat network is up, they'll be able to know where you are, and you can, I don't know how long the message is, but they can have a brief message, about the situation.
Corey Cole says magnifying glass. Magnifying glass is a good one. Yeah, whistle can be used for signaling.
Used for signaling, and it also does a pretty good job of scaring away certain critters.
Yeah, black bears don't like loud noises.
Mountain lions aren't too keen on it either.
Mark Napier says a baofeng. Baofeng is a Chinese-made, basically ham radio walkie-talkie. Those are fairly inexpensive, but in order to transmit on one, you have to get a special license.
Yeah, those FCC licenses do have some cost associated with it.
Randy Copeland says pepper spray is inexpensive. Yeah, but I learned a long time ago in law enforcement to not really count on pepper spray, because I've sprayed people that just wiped it off and kept coming. I know if a person can do that, a pissed off animal is going to do it too. You might slow them down, but if it wants you, it's still coming. I know I can fight through pepper spray because I had to in our training classes. Ken can tell you, you've got to be able to fight through pepper spray to get certified. So I know if I can do it, and I'm certainly not the toughest guy out there. If I can do it, other people can do it. There's a lot of other people can do it.
Pepper spray has very limited use for us. It was not super effective. And I had a lot of people that we actually started off using a product called Freeze Plus P, which was CS and OC together.
I got hit with
which seemed to work a little. Yeah, it sucks. It worked better than just the OC, but even the first guy I sprayed with it just wiped it off and looked at me and was like, what is this? Oops, time to go to the Aspeton.
Yeah, and even tasers are not the be all end all. A lot of guys seem to think, and my wife said she hates me now because we'll be watching a cop show and somebody will get tased, and on TV, if somebody gets tased, they're always out cold. And I'm like,
they're unconscious.
Does not work that way in any way, shape, or form. I've had guys that just came right back up as soon as you kicked that taser off, came up pissed off and ready to fight. And then I've also seen it not affect people. Now, I don't know if that was from bad contact, but I saw a guy we hit with a taser, and he just looked at us and pulled the wires out.
Yep. Had the same thing happen, and it wasn't even with heavy clothes. I know there was good contact with the probes, but one guy, we hit him with a taser, and I hit him with an Aspeton, and he never even slowed down.
Yeah, there's some people that have just abnormally high tolerance for pain. So pain compliance does not always work on these people, and it always cracks me up when people are watching videos. Like you'll see a news article and they're like, "Why did the cop go to lethal force? This guy wasn't armed." Sometimes everything you do doesn't work.
Yep.
Right.
The only thing I've seen, the most effective thing I've seen is a properly applied vascular neck restraint.
The LVNR.
It has a very good rate, and I've seen people shot, hit with batons, stabbed, pepper sprayed, tasered. All of them fail, but a properly applied vascular neck restraint has been effective almost always.
Mm-hmm.
It's a shame it's kind of been demonized.
It's been banned by a lot of departments.
I've had real good luck with a brachial stun too. You hit them the brachial plexus, and when both arms are dead stick, they can't fight you too much. As long as it's applied properly. The guys that have a problem with it, they would do like a retracted strike. They would hit and bounce off. But if you hit it and stick it, it generally works. I did have one guy that in training, he was an officer. And I don't know if he had dead nerves or what, but I hit him as hard as I could. And that's back when I was teaching defensive tactics, and brachial stun did not affect him at all.
So I've never run into that, and I'm glad I haven't. Every time I've ever had to resort to a brachial stun, it was effective. The brachial stun, the common peroneal, that's another good one.
Yep.
If you know how to do it. There's a number of stun techniques that you can take a bigger opponent down. But I think we're kind of digressing. We're now getting more into how to subdue an opponent than we are in survival situations.
Sure. Wait, we're off topic? Say it ain't so.
No, not us.
That never happens.
There he is.
Robbie went to the blender and made another daiquiri.
Nah, heard something outside. Better go check it.
Oh.
So if you guys were going to build an ideal survival kit, we've already decided you need fire starting equipment. You need something to make shelter with. You need a basic weapon, a good knife, first aid kit. What else would you add?
Flask of Bushmills. No, just kidding. Alcohol's a bad idea.
Alcohol's
It's
never
comfort,
a bad idea. That's right. And it can be used to start a fire.
It can start a fire. It makes a great antiseptic. The big caution with it is people have watched too many movies and they think that alcohol will warm them up. Alcohol makes you feel warmer, but it actually cools you down because it dilates your blood vessels and brings them to the surface. You will chill faster. I don't know where that got started, that, the St. Bernards with the rum cask and, they saved the hiker. No, they just increased his hypothermia. But he's going to die happy.
That was a Looney Tunes cartoon, right?
Yeah.
Well, they got it from somewhere, I'm sure. But
the old St. Bernard with the big cask of brandy around his neck.
Yep. A water container and life straw, in addition to your fire starter and shelter building and knife. One thing that I always keep in my pack is a knife sharpener.
Mm-hmm.
So you can get a small foldable DMT diamond knife sharpener. It will never wear out, but eventually your knife's going to get dull, and it takes up. Where's my camera? Takes up that much space because it's foldable.
I bought that one that you have, DA, from Bud K. That one's amazing, and it's very portable.
It's just a little cheapy, and it does a good job in a pinch.
Yeah, do you remember what we paid for those? It was under $20, wasn't it?
I think some of them you can catch them on sale for like $5. They're not expensive. Let's see if I've got one handy.
Yeah, mine's in the other room, but it's got like a steel sharpener. It's got mine's it's more rectangular, but a lot like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's got a a coarse, a carbide side for coarse, and then the other side is made out of ceramic for fine honing. But it's just a little cheapy to throw in a pack, and you can put an edge back on a knife.
There you go.
For about $35 from Amazon, you can get a work sharp that has the angles built in. So you can see the angle there. All you do is you lay your knife on that angle flat and drag it across. And it's even got a ceramic side to it.
Nice.
That's a little fancier than what I normally carry in my pack, but it works very well. And if you're not used to sharpening a knife, it almost does it for you.
I might have to get me one of them.
And so you just maintain the angle that the ramp has the knife on? Is that how it works?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you lay your, you can see the angle there. You just lay your blade on that angle and drag it across. So it keeps
That's
everything, cool. And even your ceramic part has got the angle built in it. They work very well. Very nice. Very nice, Robbie.
Yeah. Halliwell Wolf has a question. Yes, you can sterilize with alcohol. If you got a solution of at least 30% alcohol, it works as a great antiseptic. Your typical, whiskey is like 80 proof, which is 40% alcohol. So yeah, it'll work.
E.D. Testerman says poncho and a poncho liner. Ooh, yeah. Gotta have your whoopee.
You could do a lot of things with a whoopee. That is a very effective item.
Got one just over here behind the monitor.
Yep.
In easy reach.
I have mine in my car, in a little stuff sack.
I got 2 or 3 of those things around somewhere.
I texted Doc a couple weeks ago and I said, "Hey, I'm going to have to divorce my wife." And he said, "What's wrong?" I said, "She called my Whoopie a trash bag." Can't insult the Whoopie.
That's right.
See, my wife cannot stand the texture of them. She said she doesn't like that feel. I would never use that as a blanket. I'm like, if my ass is freezing, I'll use a hell of a lot as a blanket.
You know, there's a company that makes hoodies out of Whoopie material.
Yep, I've seen them.
Yeah, I was like, might have to get me one of those. Yeah, I don't have one either, but I thought about getting one.
I think you need to have the one that my friend Rick brought to visit. It was kind of almost like a burgundy base color, and all over it had patterns of like the top half of a human skull, without the lower jaw, and then Bigfoot heads and little Loch Ness monsters. And
that's pretty cool.
It was like a cryptid pattern. I'm like, that's pretty badass. But it had the little outline of the walking Patterson Gimlin, Bigfoot.
That's freaking funny. I want one of those. So what are some basic food items you guys would consider including?
Jerky.
High protein.
That's my primary.
Yeah. Dehydrated fruit's another good one.
Yep. And any of your nut butters, peanut butter, almond butter, pecan butter. There's a company, and I can't think of the name of it right off the top of my head, but they make little pouches that have different types of nut butters, and it's a good source of fats.
No. Or just nuts for that matter. A handful of cashews or peanuts, that's got some good fats. A lot of caloric energy in there. I think jerky is the biggest one because it's light and it's high protein, and anything made out of meat is very energy dense. As you go up the food chain, the higher levels of animals have more energy in them. So, if you're to eat grass, you get a very limited amount of energy. If you eat the small critter that eats the grass, there's a little bit more energy amplified from all the grass it ate. If you then eat a critter who's eating the grass-eating critters, that magnifies as well. Theoretically, not that everybody would ever want to do this unless it was like Donner Party situation. if you ate a human, you would get a hell of a lot of energy out of it because of all the levels of energy we eat.
And get turned into a Wendigo.
Well, yeah, and there's a plus there. You could be a Wendigo and get yourself a snowmobile for a girlfriend. It'd be great.
But one thing to bear in mind, and I don't recommend it, but if it's it or you and you have to kill a bear, you can eat bear meat. It's very greasy, and one thing to bear in mind about bear is much like swine, bear carry trichinosis. You have to make sure you cook it thoroughly. In fact, you've got a higher risk rate of trichinosis from bear meat than you do from pigs. And that's not something you want to get.
And speaking of pigs, we actually had a local game processor that died from brucellosis from wild pigs.
Really?
Oh, wow.
Do you not cook it well enough, or can you not cook brucellosis out?
He somehow cut himself when he was processing the animal.
How to do it. Yeah, I have a friend actually who I think he passed away recently. He's an elder gentleman, and he actually used to process his own deer meat when he'd hunt it. He butchered it himself, and he made his own sausage and whatnot. And he ended up getting crutchfield Jakob from a deer that had chronic wasting disease. He never, I don't know if he got it from eating it himself, because his wife ate the stuff he made and she's okay. Or if it just, maybe cut himself and he got, prions in his system. I don't know. But
they do. There's a company that now makes home test kits to test game animals for chronic wasting disease. I'll have to Google the name of the kits again. But if you're a hunter or somebody that's a hunter, keep some of these on hand. Because not every deer check-in station will check them.
Luckily, we don't have it here in South Carolina yet.
We do have it here in Missouri.
No.
North Dakota Game and Fish. Oh, that's their website. Where's it at? Oh, it's a company called PrioSense. They make the company's called Priogen. The kit is called a PrioSense CWD venison test kit. $45. I would a whole lot rather test it and know that it was safe to eat than take a chance. Because chronic wasting disease, what is it when it comes into humans, Steve?
Crutchfield Jacobs disease.
I'm going to throw the link in the chat for anybody that's interested in that. But if you're a deer hunter, or anybody that's a deer hunter, $45 is a pretty reasonable price to know your meat's not got CWD.
Yeah. Well, and the only way to kill it in a human is to cremate the human. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of a nuclear option.
Meg Mills says they check deer here. They usually do here in Missouri too, but not if you've got a farm tag. You don't always have to take it into the station to check it in. So having one on hand to test it yourself, probably not a bad idea. Sorry, I was seeing if I missed any questions.
No, we had a pretty active chat tonight.
Yeah, we've got a great chat tonight. Hey, what about brands of boots? What kind of boots do you recommend for off trail, being out in the woods a lot? Because there's 1,000,001 brands of boots. You can go to Walmart and buy some cheap boots, but if you really want to keep your feet warm and dry, you're going to spend a little extra coin and get a good pair. What do you guys recommend?
I've always liked Danners.
I've got a pair of Danner Matterhorns I've had for 25 years, and I've had them resold twice. Those are fantastic.
same here.
boots.
Yeah, I've got a set of I guess you'd call them like ankle height Doc Martens that I've had for probably 20 years. I just like them because once you get them broken, they're super comfortable, and the soles are very durable. But I'm not out in the woods much anymore. I don't hunt or anything like that. So mine are more kind of my crap kickers to go out to the range or something like that with.
I've got a pair of Rockies I like pretty well too.
Most of the time when I'm hunting around here, I wear lacrosse, the slip-on insulated. They come up to like knee height, so it'd be ankle height on you guys. But they're waterproof and work pretty well for the short hunts I do around here because I don't walk for miles usually when I'm deer hunting around here.
Yeah, make sure you've got a comfortable pair of boots. One thing to look for is that they're waterproof. You don't necessarily have to have steel-toed boots, but waterproof is essential. Simply because you getting off trail, not everything's paved, and water doesn't stick to the gutters. You're gonna have to walk through puddles. You're gonna run into inclement weather. I would highly recommend a good, comfortable pair of waterproof boots. We've thrown out a few brand names, and everybody's got their favorites. But like Ken and I were saying, the best I've ever had was a pair of Danners.
And don't put a brand new pair of boots in your kit. Wear the boots first. Take them on a couple of short walks. Break them in. You give yourself a blister with a new pair of shoes easily, and you are not a happy camper.
Yep.
Yeah, wool socks is a good one.
Hats and gloves.
Yeah,
you would
I carry a little.
You definitely want to take clothing appropriate to the weather conditions. Like, if you're going to be out, even if it's warm that day, but it's wintertime and it's going to get cold that night, take cold weather gear. If you're going to be out in the middle of summer, you're probably not going to need a coat. So, make sure you've got stuff that's appropriate to the weather you're going to be experiencing. And if you're not from Missouri, you guys probably don't understand that most places get 4 seasons a year. We get 4 seasons in an afternoon a lot of times here. So you definitely want to be prepared for the crazy weather, but just prepare for wetness. Have something you can change into that's dry, something that's waterproof. A good poncho is a key element.
I carry oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, man. Go ahead.
I carry a boonie hat and a watch cap. I guess like a beanie, sock hat.
Mm-hmm.
Depending on the weather, the sock hat obviously for the warm weather because you lose so much heat through the top of your head, and some of us are getting a little follically challenged. You gonna lose more heat that way. Yeah, I'm saying you cut it off at the source. I'm just gradually letting it happen a piece at a time. But the boonie keeping the sun off of you, it's amazing how much cooler I feel wearing the hat. You'd think that a layer in your head would make you hotter, but having that wide brim to keep the sun off your neck and out of your eyes, that's huge.
Do they still make moleskin? When I was in the Army, I always kept a packet of moleskin in my bag because blisters suck.
Yeah, it's still available.
I need to get another package of that and throw it in my pack then. As you get out in the field, especially if you've walked any distance at all, a blister's nasty, and a good piece of moleskin will save you a lot of wear and tear.
Well, and if you're using your Brock blades and knife to cut down things to make your shelter out of, you can give yourself a blister on your hand doing that.
Very much so.
Through no fault of the tool, of course, just the the tender hands doing it.
Well,
Get stronger.
Any repetitive action has the chance of giving you a blister. And something I would recommend if you're planning on spending any time out in the woods at all. Granted, you don't necessarily have to be squatch hunting, camping, fishing, hunting, backpacking. If you're going to be spending time out in the woods, there are a number of books I highly recommend. The SAS Survival Guide, top of the list. Fantastic book, well put together. Has a glossary of edible plants. Shows you how to make shelters. Shows you how to make snares. It's just an overall very valuable tool to have to study. And they make a pocket edition, which is about yay big. Put it right in the pouch of a bag. I've got the full size edition and the pocket edition.
There's also regional guides to edible and medicinal plants. Because what you may have in Missouri is some of them are going to be the same, but not all of them that we have here.
Yeah, knowing what's in your area is definitely key. And being prepared for the animals in your area too. I mean, it's going to be a lot different, say somebody that's, up in the northern Rockies up past Yosemite, what they're going to have to prepare for than what we're going to have to prepare for around here. Where the chances of running into a grizzly bear in Missouri are pretty much zero. I don't think there's been a grizzly bear sighting in Missouri since the early 1800s. But, we also don't run into buffalo. Or moose.
But they used to be around here.
Yeah, we used to have elk all over this area and moose, but they were, I think moose and large elk were hunted out by the mid 1800s. Definitely right around the Civil War. We also had wood bison in this area, and they pretty much hunted them out as well.
Same here.
Yeah, they're starting to reintroduce elk down in southern Missouri, but they haven't come this far north yet. Down near Eminence, Missouri, they released several elk herds, and supposedly they've taken off like crazy. The herds have grown to the point they're actually going to have lotteries for limited hunts this year and next year. It'd be great to get an elk tag in Missouri, but I don't see it happening.
Chances would probably slim to none.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of people putting their name in the hat for an elk hunt. Brandy Copeland says mountain lions are bad in Missouri. Yeah, mountain lions have been caught on Ring doorbells here in town.
Yeah. Well, and up until at least the mid 90s, the conservation department denied that we had any.
Mm-hmm.
And, I had somebody who was actually doing research on mountain lions in Missouri that told me that I didn't see what I thought I saw.
Brandy Copeland says one got hit by a car last fall in the city. Doesn't surprise me. There was a bear hit here in Springfield not too long ago. Wyatt Estes says the elk are what brought chronic wasting disease to Arkansas. That doesn't surprise me. Any ungulate can get chronic wasting disease, and ungulates are your deer species. You've got multiple species of deer. You've got elk. You've got moose. Moose is actually the largest species of ungulate. Reindeer are ungulates. Are buffalo technically ungulates, or are they more of a cow species?
They're a cow species. They're a bovine.
Okay.
I'm glad you explained ungulates for Robbie.
He's not amused, man.
He had 2 solid days of that, so he's probably had his fill.
It was probably got PTSD. If I put up with 2 days of that, I'd be having a hair lip and a twitch.
Brandy Copeland says goats are ungulates. I didn't know that. I didn't know goats were considered that. Roxanne Delgado says a lot of people they've seen mountain lions from there in the Joplin area.
Yeah, like I said, we have one captured a ring cam in Springfield, and then I saw a juvenile walking on the side of the road at Mark Twain National Forest, and then a few months ago, I saw an adult female with 2 cubs walking along the road about the same area. It was right about dusk, and She was just doing her thing, walking down the side of the road.
And, I think one of the things that we're noticing, and we've talked about this on the show before, and I'm sure Ken's heard us mention it, is it seems like since COVID, since we stayed out of the woods for the last few years, that these things have started making a comeback into areas we didn't used to see them. And I don't think they're going to be willingly given that territory back. It's almost like, to a certain extent, they've kind of lost their fear of us.
Robbie, you know where Belton is?
Yep.
There were two black bears. Yeah, there were two black bears hit by a car last year at Belton, which is 30, 40 miles outside of their normal range.
It seems like a lot of these animals are making a comeback into areas that we haven't seen them before in a long time.
Are you in South Carolina as well, Ken, or are you somewhere else?
Yeah.
South Carolina.
Yeah, I'm in South Carolina.
Hey, another good thing to keep in your pack is some calamine lotion.
That is very useful, especially if you're allergic to poison ivy and the like.
Yeah. If you get into some poison ivy, calamine's a good thing to keep on hand as part of your first aid kit.
And be aware that your allergies to it can change, because up until 5 years ago, I wasn't allergic to poison oak or poison ivy.
Yeah, when I was a kid, it was like I could wade through the crap and never get it. But now that I'm an adult, I can catch it on the breeze, and I've got poison ivy on my arm.
Oh.
Mark Napier says Benadryl. Definitely keep some Benadryl in there.
Yeah, Benadryl is great for a lot of stuff.
Hey, something just occurred to me, guys. I know, treat it kindly. It's in a strange place. But for the first time, we can actually let Ken talk about Brock Blades himself.
I make sharp stuff.
Well, why don't we go ahead and take a minute and do that? Ken, why don't you tell us a little bit about Brock Blades since you're here?
Well, I am a one-man shop. I do everything in the knife making process except for heat treating. I send that out to a professional group that does a lot better job than I would do. They not only do the heat treating, but they also do they check for straightness. They treat them cryogenically with liquid nitrogen and do hardness testing. But every blade is made by hand on machines that Doc got to witness some of the workings. Out of a bar of steel, I grind every knife by hand. I don't use any jigs or fixtures. So there's going to be variations in each knife. Matter of fact, DA, the Ardennes that I'm making for you is going to be significantly different than the one I'm making for Doc. Each one has a different grind. They are warranted, by the way. One thing we've probably never mentioned on the show, if you break it, I'll fix it or replace it. I make knives using two different materials primarily. I use either steel or titanium, depending on the purpose of the blade. And you can choose your handle color. You can choose, for instance, as I was showing Doc last week, I had a guy in New York that couldn't have a certain length blade, so I shortened it for him. So we can adjust blade length, handle shape. I can take the blade from one knife and the handle from another and put them together. Kind of the sky's the limit for the most part. I even hand sanded that dagger for Doc that he wanted, his Doc Holiday special. And if you use the code Crypted10 for anything that's available on the website, give you 10% off. Or if you let me know in an email you want to order a certain blade, maybe something that's not available, let me know that you heard it on the show, and you'll get the same discount.
That's awesome.
Heck yeah. Robbie, you want to tell us a little bit about Scallywag Tactical?
Much like Ken makes his handmade knives, Scallywag makes mass-produced knives, where Ken's knives are going to be, each knife's going to be individual. These are mass-produced, but they're still just as high quality. They make folders, fixed blades, kitchen knives, fillet knives, just about any kind of knife use or want. They're a veteran-owned company. They make most all their knives are made in the U.S. I think maybe one or two they might outsource some of the stuff, but for the most part, they're all in the U.S. Razor sharp. I've had both of these probably well over a year and have not had to sharpen either one of them. DA's got just about every one that they make.
Not
Close.
quite.
Close. And I love to get Steve to tell this story because Craig made Steve a customer for life.
Oh yeah.
He cares about his customers. If you get a Kershaw, you get a Gerber, you get a Spider Coat, you're just a number to them.
Oh yeah. Yeah. When we started doing the Scallywag promos and stuff, I started reading about it in the books. I started shopping around their website, and I wanted a good folder, and so I bought myself a privateer because I wanted a larger folder. Great knife, D2 die steel. I mean, it'll cut you as y'all say long, deep, and continuous. And
Facts.
I use a pocket knife for everything. I'm an Eagle Scout. I've had a pocket knife on me since like 4th grade, back when you could take knives to school, and I use it for everything. Everything short of trimming my nails. And I was trying to pry a stuck staple out of a stapler, and I flipped it out, and I had the knife maybe 3 weeks, and I went to pry down, and I hear a tink, and the top 1/4 inch of the knife is gone. And I was mortified because much like Dox kits, Scallywag's knives are not cheap knives, and so I'm like, well, that was a nice mistake. And so I reached out to Craig and told him what had happened, and basically I was just going to try to see if I can get a deal on buying a new one or something like that, because it was my mistake. And so in Ken fashion, in Craig fashion, he busted my balls a little bit, and he said, the reason you could only do that with a cheap knife.
That's my fashion too.
Well, he's like, the reason you were able to do that before is you were using a cheap knife. They weren't hard. Because hard means brittle. Yeah, and you sharpen it less, but it's more brittle. You don't pry with it. He said, you want to pry with something, get a screwdriver, get yourself a crowbar. Don't do that. And I'm like, yes, sir. Sorry, And he said, send it back to me. I'll put a new edge on it for you. He paid the postage and everything. And I sent it to him. I got it back like a week later. It was, very slightly shorter. The blade was slightly changed in shape because, he can't, stick back on the missing piece of knife. But it's got a beautiful edge on it. Works great. And he made a customer for life from that. That was my mistake. I ruined a $200 knife, and I ended up buying another privateer and shipped it to my brother-in-law, and he said it's the best knife he's ever owned. I carry a mini jack to work. I've got a couple of the folders, Jolly Roger, I think, Orca, maybe. Is that the one that's got the carbon fiber handle?
With the serrations on it.
Yeah. I don't have all of the any of the fixed blades yet, but that's my next investments. I'd like to get a gunner's mate.
Those are nice knives.
So that perfect example of what happens when you got somebody who cares about people or their customers versus some big box company that just they don't care. You already bought their knife, and who cares what you do with it or what you think of it from then on. Craig actually cares. He made a customer for life with Steve. He's also got a section called Blemish Blades. Jump on the Blemish Blades most of the time. I'd say probably 92.5% of the time. Just throwing that number out there. It's just something wrong with the box. It's not anything wrong. DA's got one knife out of all the knives he's got. He's got one knife he got off of Blemish Blades. It's got a very, very small scratch on it. It took him, what you say, like 20, 30 minutes of looking at the knife.
Yeah, I had to actually like hunt for it. I'm like, okay, what's wrong with this? Because the box was in fine shape. I'm like, okay, well, that's out the window. The box looks fine. So I had to hunt for it and finally found a little scratch to the front of the blade.
So he's not going to sell it as brand new. So he puts it on the Blemish Blades. So this was on the Blemish Blades too. There's nothing wrong with the knife. It was the corner of the box was crushed in when I got it, but nothing wrong with the knife. This, I think, $45 for the Jolly Roger normally, DA. That right?
I think they're on sale for 20 right now.
Yeah, I got this one for 15, and I dare you to go find any big box store knife that is going to be as good as this is for $15. You're not going to do it. There's no way. You're not going to be able to go and get a Spyderco or a Kershaw or even maybe you might can find a Gerber for close to that might come as somewhat close to this, but for the money, you're not going to find a knife that's going to compete with these. It's just not going to happen. So when you get those good discounts on the Blemish Blades, put code DA Roberts 10 in at checkout, give yourself an extra 10% off on top of whatever the discount is from just the store, because they do stack up. Tell me that you heard of them from us. Craig likes to hear that kind of stuff. And like I said, where Ken makes his knives by hand, these are mass produced, but they're both high quality knives. So when you're playing around with Ken's knives or these knives, make sure you got yourself a Dark Angel medical kit, because they're going to cut you. Ken's knives and these
continuous.
3 ways, long, deep, and continuous. I know because this one cut me on camera.
DA's done it too.
Yeah, my privateer got me.
Got a question for you, Ken. Your knives, in addition to being, neat, usable tools, they're a work of art because they're handmade. I mean, let's be honest, they're artistry. Since I am not fortunate to yet possess any of your blades, if I were to go out to your site, what would you recommend for a good general all-around knife of your product lineup?
General all-around combat options. Like so.
Oh, sweet.
Can be used in a forward grip. It really was designed for reverse grip, but it's a utilitarian type blade. You can have the top edge sharpened or not, but it works for about anything. I mean, you could clean a deer with it. You can whittle. You can use it for combatives. That's the first knife I designed for me. This one happens to be in titanium, because generally what I do is I make a batch of steel blades, send them off to heat treat, because you need to make it work financially, you need to send a lot to heat treat. So I usually send about 50 at one time to heat treat. And while I'm waiting, I get a sheet of titanium and make a run of titanium blades. Titanium is great and it sucks both at the same time, because it's strong, but it's soft. So if you can see that silver line, the gray line on the edge here. So I weld a layer of tungsten carbide on the edge. Yeah, DA's is the same way. And what that does is tungsten carbide has a hardness of 72. Titanium has a hardness of 42. Most steel blades have a hardness anywhere from 57 to 62, depending on the type of steel. So the tungsten carbide is there to give you an edge to sharpen against, so it stays sharp longer.
Gotcha.
And gets,
What kind of hardness
gets a
are you
little bit
looking at for like a D2, that die steel? I know that's particularly hard.
D2 is usually in the ballpark of 58, if I remember right.
Okay, that gives me a reference.
There's a balance of the harder it gets, the more brittle it gets. And it depends on the type of steel you're using. So for my steel blades, I use a steel from Crucible Metals called CPM 3V. It's super hard, has a high wear rate, and it can be hardened to 61 is the optimal hardness for it. Some of your carbon steel blades, like a 1095 or an 01, you're only going to have those about 57. Each steel has its own formula for heat treat, and
Gotcha.
it has its own optimal hardness. So I'm not sure if that answered your question or not.
No, it does. It does. I guess, if you haven't figured out by me breaking my privateer, I'm a knife novice. I'm starting to collect some now, and I think I used to carry for years I had a Schrade, like 2.5-inch folder that I just used for everything. And, I was sharpening it constantly, and, I would have a damn good edge on it, but it was something I was maintaining all the time.
Right.
I like, with my mini jack, I don't have to mess with it. I've had it for probably a year now, and I cut open something every day. Every piece of mail I get, every box, half the shit at work. And I just like the fact I don't have to sharpen the damn thing. And, it's that's kind of the thing. I kind of feel about sharpening knives the way I feel about cleaning guns. I do it because I know my guns are expensive and I take care of them. I do not enjoy cleaning my guns. I'm not one of these guys who will strip them down on the kitchen table and oh, he has got to clean. No, that's not me. Same thing with sharpening my knives.
Yeah, do it because you have to, not because you want to.
Right. And as well as I do that a not quite sharp enough knife that you're trying to use as sharper than you think it is going to cut you.
Yep.
9 times out of 10. Unless you're trying to demonstrate the sharpness of a knife on live internet radio, you're typically not going to cut yourself with a brand new sharp edge.
Right, Robbie?
Yep.
Well, I guess the only other affiliate that leaves is Little Doc. And I'll throw his code up there, Dark Angel Medical's discount code of Crypted25. And fortunately, we have a pre-recorded message from the little guy himself.
Hey everybody, this is Kerry Pocket Doc Davis from Dark Angel Medical, and you are listening to DA Ex Machina with DA Roberts. You may recognize me or some of my products from Dark Angel Medical in some of the Apex Predator, Lakeview Man, and Wild Hunt books, and you can get those products at www.darkangelmedical.com, along with training classes on how to use those products and save a life. Shoot us an email at info@darkangelmedical.com and be the difference.
And that's the little Doc himself. And again, don't forget to use the discount code Crypted25 for 25% off your order. Doc's kits are top of the line.
Yeah. And of course, that kit for life guarantee is a big incentive.
Very much so. Did I heard the beep? Did we get a super chat?
We did. It was
there it is.
Lene.
Miss Lene. Well, thank you, Miss Lene. I've actually got the chair ordered. It's on back order, so it may take me a few months to get it. Apparently there was a run on the things coming up on the holidays, so we're getting the chair. I just got to wait for it to finally actually arrive. But thank you for the super chat.
And if you're one thing to mention, since Doc isn't here to do it himself, you guys are into I don't know, what do you want to call it? I jokingly call it mil spec porn, but you like the military stuff. If you mention codename Wild Hunt on your order to Doc, you'll get a little T-mode and rocker for your
There
gear.
you go.
And there you go. And yeah, that's pretty badass. You couple it with a a Wild Hunt patch or something like that, and you could feel like you're right there with the team.
Mark Napier had a question for you. Ken says, what do you think of San Mai steel?
San Mai steel is fantastic. For those that don't know what San Mai is Japanese for 3 layers. So what you normally have is a core of hard steel, and then on each side of that is forge welded a outside layer of milder steel, which would give you the strength. Your core is going to be your hardness, which is all you really need for an edge, but the 2 layers on either side give you strength because they're not as hard. Joshua Dalton, how much is an Ardennes? Could you do a D-guard? I do not do D-guards. It is normally $450 for an Ardennes. They are super aggravating to make. They're long, they're curved. I have to use a thicker stock of steel. They take a lot of grinding to get where you want it. So, of course, that's what DA and Doc wanted. So now I have 2 of them in the shop that they are back from heat treat. I got them back last Friday. And so I got to get around to finish grinding those. But they're a pain in the balls. I'm not going to lie.
I'm sorry, man.
Most of my knives are in the 3.5 to 4 inch blade size, so about 8 inches overall. An Ardennes has a blade that's about 7.5 inches, and because of the recurve, they're not fun. But and they're actually named. The Ardennes is named for my grandfather, who fought in the Ardennes forest at the Battle of the Bulge.
Oh,
my Uncle Ed fought.
I was wondering if that was the reference.
Yep.
You know, funny you're talking about the Ardennes. That story that I put the Ardennes in, Will Grey Eagle showing up with the Ardennes on Dixie Crypted, has now been viewed over 1 million times.
No kidding. That's pretty cool.
Crap.
I was pretty excited when I saw that.
You know, I don't care what people say, DA. You're pretty good at this.
Well, Cam's narration's pretty awesome too.
You just like to hear the chickens in the background.
I love Cam's narrations. He does a really good job. Boys, it's after 10.
Oh my goodness. And we almost hit on topic. Almost.
Yeah, for the most part.
Slightly, mostly.
Josh Thomas says, so you're saying there's a chance.
For a D-guard? No.
Especially on an Ardennes, it sounds like he's like not a chance in hell.
No. And I'll tell you, I had the guy I used to work with. He wanted me to make a sheath for a K-bar. So I didn't mention, but each it's hard to tell, but each Kydex sheath is molded to the knife. So you heat it up in a press, and you wrap it around it in a foam press, and I've actually made magazine pouches for Glocks, and I have to heat it back up so that it will release, because the Kydex molds down into the magazine catch on the Glock magazine, and you can't get it out, so you have to heat it back up. So anyway, so he wanted this sheath for a K-bar, and I didn't even think about it. But that thing has not only a upper guard and a lower guard, but it has a fuller. So that groove, some people call it blood groove, on the K-bar, the Kydex molds down into it. Man, that thing took a couple of hours to fix, because you have to reheat it and try to get that detent out of that fuller, plus a guard on each end. No, I don't do K-bar sheaths anymore. I did that one, and that was enough.
Yeah, that'd be a pain in the ass.
So now think about doing a D-guard. Nope.
I love K-bar, but or not K-bar, but Kydex.
Yeah, I do too.
I bought a Phobos holster for one of my Glocks, and I don't know if it was just, I guess anything is mass produced, there's always some tolerances. And that thing was the tightest damn holster on the planet. And it, kind of clipped onto the belt. And like, I would have to take both hands to draw it out of there. I finally, after 3 hours of effing around with a Dremel tool, I finally ground the detent down enough that it would release well. And I'm like, okay, well, I love this holster, but damn. And I bought the same model of holster for a couple other guns and hadn't had an issue. I guess I just got one of those ones that was on the tighter end of the tolerances. But that wasn't my fun.
No, I don't do swords.
Mark Neighbors,
Part
how
of the
about a
problem-
basket guard?
That's a double nope. That's Doc holding a snake nope. Can I make Kydex for a knife I have? Shoot me an email, Mark, at kbblades@yahoo.com. Let me know what kind of a knife it is, and I can give you a better quote on making Kydex for it. A lot of people ask me if I make holsters from Kydex, and I do not. The problem with holsters, they're made using a drone gun. So you have a rings gun or an asp red gun. I'm sure DA and Robbie probably are familiar with those. And that way it doesn't have all of the little curves and notches in it, like the trigger guard is full. So they use that. And it also has it will also have a channel down the top. And that way it molds in so you can get your gun out so the sight doesn't catch. And I don't have drones to make holsters with. So I usually buy my own holsters, and because it's cheaper than buying a bunch of drone guns to make my holsters. A blackjack, a dirk. I've seen that, but I don't know what it is. Shoot me an email. We'll chat. I don't want to tie up the whole show on that.
Well, boys, start winding things down. One thing I want to do is from all of us here at DA Ex Machina, we would like to wish everybody a happy and safe Veterans Day, and say a big thank you to all the men and women in uniform, whatever capacity. We owe a debt to the men and women in uniform that we can never really repay. God bless each and every one of them for putting themselves on the line to protect us all and to keep us safe. And I know that Veterans Day is for military veterans, but I honestly feel that first responders should be included in that as well, because they served. First responders put their ass on the line too. And, they may not have done it overseas, but they're certainly doing it here. So I think we not only do we owe a debt of thanks to our veterans, but we do to all of our first responders as well. And, hopefully that can be addressed. There'll be either add first responders to Veterans Day or make a first responders day. But I know first responders definitely deserve our recognition and our admiration and thanks as well. But that always brings me to the 22 a Day Foundation. And see, I'm wearing my 22 a day wristband. I wear it all the time. We lose 22 veterans a day to suicide. And if you look at the Officer Down Memorial page, we lose almost as many officers as well. These folks, these men and women have seen things that most people who sit home safely on their couch and sleep safely in their beds will never, ever understand. They've seen horrible things. They've seen war. They've seen blood. They've seen death. They've pulled children out of burning cars. They've held somebody's hand as they breathed their last. and that leaves a lasting effect on every man and woman that's worn that uniform. And this is why we owe them all our gratitude and our thanks and our love and support. But we lose 22 a day to suicide, and that is 22 too many. So if you're in a charitable mood, you feel like giving to a charity, give to the 22 a day foundation or the Till Valhalla project, because both of those the money does go to veterans. With a lot of these big charities, if you give $100 to them, less than 10 of it actually makes it to the veteran. Most of it goes to big salaries at the upper end of these companies. But the Till Valhalla project, the 22 a day foundation, 95% of everything goes right to the veterans. These are buying service dogs. These are helping veterans get prosthetics. They're helping veterans get counseling. These are something that I feel very, very strongly about. As a first responder, and Ken and Robbie will tell you this. I've heard too many last calls on the radio. In my lifetime, I've seen far too many folded flags handed to widows and grieving families. And something like the 22 a day foundation, when it's suicide that could have been avoided, to me, that's all the more tragic. Because reach out to your friends, your family. Reach out to the folks that have served in uniform in any capacity. Because that voice on the phone or that text might be what pulls them back from the edge. It might be the one thing that keeps them, from staring into the abyss that day and giving in.
It really
Let them know
touches
you're
you.
thinking about them. Let them know you're thinking about them. Let them be care.
I had a fella come in to the urgent care one night, and I work in an urgent care plus, which basically means I work in a poor man's ER. We can handle quite a lot, but we're also attached to a hospital, so the shit gets really real. We can go to the ER, right? But we have people that come to us sometimes with things that are just too advanced for us. If you're having a stroke, don't come to my urgent care. But people do sometimes. Well, this particular gentleman, they called me up for a nurse check, and I come up and there's this 24, 25-year-old kid sitting there. It could have been my son. And he is just hemorrhaging blood out of his arm. And I pulled him back in my room to check him out, and he has cut his inside of his arm down to the bone. You can see every layer of meat, and things are squirting and oozing where they're not supposed to. And, I quickly, stopped the bleeding and covered things up. And of course, we took him down to the emergency room. And as we're rolling down there, I asked his name because, it's a 200-yard walk, so we have a little bit of time to talk. And I said, so what happened? And you could tell he was a little intoxicated. And after a long pause, he just says, Afghanistan. And at that point, I knew he was in the military, and it was everything I could do to fight back tears. I've watched people die. I'm able to compartmentalize it. I got a little bit of a psychotic trait that I could do that, and I process it later. But it was all I could do. And I said, well, you're safe now, son. And that's all I could do. And he got the help he needed, and it just affected me. It affected me so hard. And he just about gave all so I could have the gift of what he gave. And that hits me.
Folks, you are not alone. If you have no one else to talk to, reach out to one of us. Our car contact information's in the channel contact. You can reach out to my email. I'd rather listen to your story than read your obituary. Reach out to any one of us. I'm sure we would be happy to talk to you. And there are a lot of others out there too.
With the 4 or 5 of us that are involved in this show regularly, we've all gotten that 3 a.m. Are you all right, fucker text? Because we've gotten in that place where, we're a little concerned about our brother. You're in that too, Ken. I'll gladly call you a fucker any day.
And I would expect
come on.
But your family too. We're there for each other.
But yeah, folks, reach out to the people the men and women that have served in uniform, be they veterans or first responders, because that text or that phone call or that popping in the door and just saying, hey, let's go grab a beer, that might be what pulls them back from the edge. And we've lost way too many. And let's get 22 a day down to 0 a day.
There are no acceptable losses.
Entirely too many. Right. There's not an acceptable loss. We shouldn't be losing men and women. We should be treating our veterans far better than we are. And a lot of that's on the government, but I won't get into that. This isn't the forum for that. We don't do that here. We don't get into politics. We don't really get into religion. But let's just say we don't do enough for our veterans and our men and women in uniform. So if you know someone and you care someone, you reach out to them and you let them know that you're there, and let them know that they've got somebody to talk to. And, and believe me, that can make a whole world of difference.
You don't know how one phone call can pull you out of the darkness. One phone call. That's all it takes. One text. One text. You know, it happens.
One of the things we've been doing here on the show recently, and it's something I'm kind of proud of and something I'm going to continue to do, is we've been ending the show with a toast. There's an old Irish drinking song called The Parting Glass. And when you listen to the lyrics, you realize that that song is talking about saying goodbye to people that can't lift a glass with you anymore. It's saying goodbye to the ones we've lost along the way. And the song is really a beautiful tune. If you haven't heard it, I would definitely recommend go put in The Parting Glass on YouTube, and there's about 1,000 renditions of it. Definitely listen to the song. It's a beautiful tune, and it'll stick with you. But I'm going to close the show out with a toast, and you guys can read it along with me if you like, or those of you out there, just raise a glass of whatever it is you're drinking. But since it fell into my lot that I should rise and you should not, I'll gently rise and softly call. Good night, and joy be to you all. Good night, everyone, and thank you for being with us.
Slangermai.
Skull.
Thank you for joining us. Catch us again Wednesdays and Saturdays on Ex Machina. A special thanks to all our channel members and Patreon supporters. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe.